The hallway of St. Gabriel High was alive with the morning rush, the metallic clatter of locker doors, the squeak of sneakers on polished tiles, and the constant hum of 100 overlapping conversations. The air smelled faintly of floor wax and coffee from the teacher's lounge. Then, like a pin dropping in a crowded room, the sound shifted. A strange quiet rippled outward, starting from the front entrance and stretching down the corridor. Students glanced up, their chatter faltering, as the new girl stepped inside. She didn't have the polished look of someone who'd planned their first day outfit for weeks. Her blouse was a little loose at the shoulders, her skirt falling just a bit longer than most. Her black shoes, scuffed at the edges, tapped softly with each step. She held a stack of worn notebooks against her chest like they were both shield and anchor. Her eyes were lowered, fixed on the tile in front of her, not in fear, but in focus, as if she were counting each step toward an invisible finish line. She was new. And in St. Gabriel High, new meant noticed. Halfway down the hall, 3 boys leaned against the lockers, framed perfectly in the morning light. They looked like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. Brent stood at the center. Tall, broad, blazer unbuttoned in defiance of the dress code, his hair perfectly out of place. His grin was practiced, the kind that had gotten him out of trouble and into it more times than anyone could count. To his left was Kyle, wiry and restless, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet like he was just waiting for an excuse to move. On the other side, Mason leaned casually, his arms folded, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. The moment Brent saw her, that grin sharpened. "Hey," he called, voice carrying easily over the din. "Lost, little lamb?" The girl didn't look up. Didn't slow down. The steady rhythm of her footsteps didn't change. Kyle tilted his head toward Brent, smirking. "I think she's ignoring you, man." Brent pushed off from the lockers, strolling into her path. "That's not very friendly," he said, tone light but with an edge. Still nothing. A few students noticed the scene unfolding and began to linger by their lockers, watching. St. Gabriel loved its morning drama. Mason chuckled. "Maybe she's shy. Maybe we should help her feel welcome." She was just steps away when Mason blocked her path. She stopped, finally lifting her gaze to meet theirs. Her eyes weren't what they expected. They weren't wide with fear or darting toward a teacher for rescue. They were calm. Still. And beneath that stillness was something sharp, a kind of knowing that made Mason's grin falter. "You don't want to do this," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried in the strange hush that had fallen over the hall. Brent laughed, tilting his head. "Oh yeah? And why's that?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because you have no idea who you're messing with." The way she said it wasn't defiant. It was almost sad. Kyle snorted. Big words from someone who looks like she can't even pass gym class. Brent smirked and stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Let's see about that," he said, reaching out to grab her arm. It happened in less than a second. Her hand shot up, catching his wrist mid-air. A twist, sharp but controlled, sent Brent to one knee before he even realized what happened. His gasp of pain echoed, drawing startled looks from nearby students. Leaning in, her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for him. "I know what you did last year." Brent froze, confusion and fear flashing in his eyes. "You left him in the river," she continued, each word deliberate. "You thought no one saw. But I did." The blood drained from his face. His friends exchanged nervous glances. "You're crazy," Brent tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. She let go of his wrist, straightening. "Maybe. But you're guilty." Turning, she began walking away, her steps calm, measured. Brent's voice followed her, but now it was stripped of bravado. It cracked. "Wait. Please, don't tell anyone." She stopped, glancing over her shoulder. "Then you'll leave me alone." And not just me. Everyone. From that day, they did. And here's where I pause to say this: if moments like these, quiet power, courage, and unexpected turns, hit you the way they hit me, subscribe to Soul Touch Stories. It's where I share stories that will pull you in and leave you thinking long after they end. Now, back to Aria. Her name was Aria Torres. She hadn't come to St. Gabriel by accident. A year earlier, her older brother had been pulled from the icy river just in time. The doctors called it a miracle. But he remembered enough to tell her about the boys who ran when he went under. They didn't even try to help. They left him. She had been there that day, watching from the far bank. She'd never forgotten their faces. For months, she carried the image of them in her mind, replaying it every night. And when her family moved back into the district, she transferred to St. Gabriel for one reason: to find them. But she hadn't come to ruin them with gossip or fight them in the halls. She wanted something harder to get. Change. The weeks after that hallway encounter were quiet. Too quiet for Brent, Kyle, and Mason. They didn't make their usual noise in the cafeteria. They stopped tripping kids in the stairwell or shoving books out of hands. Something about the way she'd looked at them, the weight in her voice, had taken root in their minds. Aria watched from a distance. She saw Mason sitting alone in the library, flipping through flyers for the community service club. She saw Kyle walking his little sister to school, keeping her close whenever older kids passed. And Brent. Brent avoided her altogether. Until one crisp October afternoon. She was under the oak tree by the football field, reading. The wind stirred leaves across the grass, casting shifting patterns on her pages. She heard the footsteps before she saw him. Brent stood there, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd rehearsed and still wasn't sure about this. Finally, he sat beside her, not too close. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the distant shouts from soccer practice. "I just wanted to say. I'm sorry," Brent said at last. "For everything." She didn't look at him. "You're not apologizing to me," she said. "You're apologizing to yourself. That's the hard part." He nodded slowly. "Still. Thank you." She closed her book and turned to him. For the first time since that day in the hallway, she smiled, not out of victory, but out of recognition. "Make it count, Brent. That's all I ask." Later, she texted her brother, "It's done. He's different now." His reply was instant, "Proud of you, sis." Aria leaned back against the oak, feeling the weight she'd carried for so long lift slightly. She'd expected confrontation. She'd prepared for anger. But what she found instead was proof that even those who once pushed you down could choose to stand beside you. If this story touched you, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to Soul Touch Stories, because there are more moments like this worth sharing. Because sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's redemption.